I noticed that honestly and truthfully, towards the end of like undergrad, all my friends were queer or lesbian.
Yeah, kind of found
It
your
was like
tribe a little
naturally,
bit.
I just started to progress up out of heteronormativity, and it was hilarious because all my friends was just like, "So you gonna come out?"
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley, and I'm so happy you came by. The Queerly Blax Show aims to normalize the everyday existence of Black, LGBTQIA plus individuals through an interview-style series with regular folks like you and me. So every week, a new guest shares their story and unique perspective on their existence as an LGBTQIA plus individual. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe, download, set your reminders to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Queerly Blax Show. We are here with a very special guest. Rayla, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
My name is Rayla Michon. I am an early childhood educator based in Philadelphia. I'm a painter, I'm a movement coach, and a tarot reader.
Oh, you doing it all.
A little bit of everything.
Nice. You live in Philly. Are you from Philly?
Nah, I'm actually from Rochester, New York.
Okay. You're a tri-state.
Yeah, been out in Philly for about 3 years. I feel very rooted here.
Yeah. I'm from Jersey, actually. I'm from Trenton.
Word.
So right up the street, you know.
Not that far.
No, not at all. Not from Philly. Yeah, my grandmother actually used to live in Philly before she passed. So yeah, no, I'm very familiar with Philly. Well, good. So we're here to talk about you, talk about your journey, with the hope of helping some folks find themselves. So let's go all the way back to the beginning and talk about what was your first interaction with your sexuality? When did you first know I might like girls?
Oh, what a question. I think that it started for me very young, when you play. And I noticed that sometimes when people wanted to play house, I didn't really mind who was my partner. And it was very early on. And I feel like that kind of like was a nugget, but through growing up, like I would start to get some sprinkles here and there about like, that's not okay. You shouldn't do that. Or, just hearing certain microaggressions here and there that kind of like made me feel a little bit more inhibited over time about it. Cause like naturally kids are like open, right?
Yeah.
Expansive and just like, hey, how are you? What do you do? Let's talk, let's touch, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like growing up, getting older, just starting to like hear very subtle things. Everybody think they're open-minded, right? Until they have a queer relative. I feel like everybody's real open-minded until somebody in the family, might be.
Very true. So young, growing up, playing house, and you was like, I don't know. So how would you define yourself? Because I noticed you said you wouldn't mind who the partner was. So how do you define your sexuality?
I say fluid.
Fluid. So is that anybody?
Fluid, expansive, polysexual, queer, just kind of under the umbrella of that. Like, I feel like I love Black people, honestly, and I find so much beauty in everybody. So if anything, I find myself very much intrigued by cis men that express a lot of femininity, as well as, women that express their masculinity freely. I think that's like, I don't know. I feel like it's godly. It's special. It like defines all,
Yeah. No, that's dope. That's dope. So as you're growing up, you dated, like we're talking about like elementary, middle school, high school, college. If you dated in those arenas, did you date everybody? Have you had experiences with dating girls, dating guys? What was that journey to fluidity and being able to express it that way?
So what was just so beautiful this past week is that I found this picture of like the first girl I really, really liked in high school. And she was on the basketball team. She was just like, I don't know. I just really love the way in which she expressed herself through time and space. But that relationship actually was never able to develop because of her Christianity. Like, if anything, she would kind of condemn herself. So I kind of feel like I had for a long time a lot of performative heteronormativity child stuck in comp het for a long time. And it wasn't until the end of college, I just met this wonderful woman
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, I love her.
Mm-hmm.
I love her. And I've never had the experience prior to that. Like I had my people that like I had crushes, like I said, but that person was a game changer for me, in which I really just understood that like the heart just don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
So after college, that was my first queer relationship.
Nice. So up until that point, was it a matter of figuring it out? Like, were you processing it and trying to understand, am I queer? Am I straight? Like, what's happening? Were you just like a process of studying yourself and trying to figure out
All of that,
how,
all of that.
what was
Well,
that?
prior to that time, I came out to like certain folks as bisexual, right? But I felt like that wasn't really quite it. You know what I'm saying? Um, but I do feel like, I don't know, it's that just, it felt like I kind of naturally gravitated, if anything. I noticed that honestly and truthfully, towards the end of like undergrad, all my friends were queer or lesbian.
Yeah, kind of found
It
your
was like
tribe a little
naturally, I
bit.
just started to progress up out of heteronormativity. And it was hilarious because all my friends was just like, so you gonna come out? And I'm like, well, you know, I told you, I feel like I'm bi. But when I met that person, right? It was just like, I really care about this person. And it was hard too, right? Because up to that time, I had no experience, right? But I felt so strongly about this individual. And it wasn't until she got another girlfriend that I was just like, fuck, you know what I'm saying? I was like, fuck, I missed it. This is the person that I want.
Yeah.
And literally we were together for about 3 years on and off. And throughout that time, I feel like not only was it necessarily sexuality, I just feel like repression and also my journey to self-love. Like it wasn't even so much about just like, okay, she's a woman, because she's just like everything. That person's energy is everything. I don't care, right? But I just realized it was like, man, it's not so much about that. It's like I have blockages around love in general, right? So my journey into my queerness has been more so about like, how do I love myself? And how do I actually like take off all these extra layers of, like I said, repression, certain things around microaggression, things that were like kind of culturally put in there, right? But also feeling like I'm worthy of this person's heart, yo.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super dope. Did you grow up in church?
Nah, I did not grow up in church at all, but I think that my life had always been so queer adjacent because like both of my parents are artists. So come on now, the colors, right?
Yeah.
In the community. But I do feel like possibly because both my parents are boomers, baby boomers, they kind of already have like your life figured out for you.
Yeah.
Like who I want you to be. You're going to be a mathematician one day. You're going to do this one day, right? And so, if anything, wanting to be obedient in some way was the repression, right? It was like who I was taught to be, how I was supposed to perform in the world. And also, the truth is just, again, like experiences of my own that made me feel like I wasn't supposed to be loved entirely.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. What did you come out to your parents?
What was that?
Did you come out to your parents?
Oh, yes, honey. You know what's hilarious? You know what's hilarious? When I was 13, my dad asked me, he was like, you gay? I was like, no. You know what I'm saying? Because it was the tone. It was the tone of the question.
He was confronting you, not asking you out of curiosity. Yeah.
It was not like that, right? But this is how I feel like I kind of came out with my mom, because that's the person I'm closer with. I just started doing really gay shit all the time and having like really gay people around me all the time. And if anything was like, all right, girl, I'll put this all on you. And what's beautiful now is that, like, I think she was like watching Dr. Oz or Dr. Phil the other day. She was like, they were talking about pronouns and how people express themselves and how should I actually introduce myself. And I'm like, okay, girl, all right, I see you now opening up. But with my mom, I just kind of felt like I just got to put this all on you, and I'm gonna put you in the mix too, boo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you define yourself? What are your pronouns?
They, them,
Okay.
she, her, but mostly they, them. And I feel that way just because I do feel like I'm divinely androgynous.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I just feel like just in the same way that I feel fluid sexually, I feel fluid like in terms of my gender expression too.
Yeah. So because everybody has their own like little, I say, twist or reason for that, right? For the non-binary terminology. What are some of the ways that for you made you say, I might be, because of your gender expression, what were some of the things that, or some of the things now that make you feel like it's not one or the other?
Oh, that started hecka early. Like, listen, you could not call me Rayla growing up. Like when I was like 10, it was like call me Ray.
Mm.
Like I was very strong in that masculinity for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And just even being a child of the 90s, right? So we got like TLC, Aaliyah and stuff like that. That made it so easy for me, bruh. Like my
Mm-hmm.
mom used to give me like whole like Nike sweatsuits, track suits. I was fresh.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had like my hair done like a little girl, but she always kind of had me dressing like a tomboy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for a very long time, I felt very strong in presenting that way. And later on, I felt like I kind of found my way towards my femininity, whether it was dressing more feminine, heels, but then also like really embracing my femininity through spirituality. So with just finding myself in my friendships and the women in my communities, I think it kind of was backwards for me, where it was just like I was very masculine growing up. And then now I'm like finding this nice in between with like, you know, my gender expression. So it's always kind of been there.
Nice. And then on the sexuality side,
Mm-hmm.
you describe yourself as fluid, right? And so because bisexual means, you date men and you date women, right? So what is the thing that makes you say that's too closed off? Like that box is not big enough to include everything that's important to me. What are those drivers for you? Because I think I think pansexual is probably closer to being fluid in terms of dating everyone. And then what was the process of going from bisexual to fluid or pansexual, I guess is the word.
I say poly, right?
Poly, okay.
Poly, I mean, because that's many.
Yeah.
Pan is all. But for me,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Got it. That makes sense. Poly versus that makes sense. I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So anything for me, it was just like having friends, right? That were along the spectrum of gender expression. That just flat out, if I am to love these people, I am to honor them how they see themselves in whatever stage of their transition, right? So just having certain friends that are just starting to like shift more towards transitioning, even if it's pre-op, just understanding that people are just people.
Yeah.
I think that was like the turning point for me because yes, right? Like growing up, it was like incredibly binary for me, right? Just guy, girl, that's whatever. But then just even being placed in community the way that I have been, I just started to be able to respect people in all forms that they come in. Doesn't mean that I am willing or wanting to date everybody, but I find a lot of beauty in all of it, because that's your truth. That's what it is.
Right. And bisexuality doesn't include transgender people.
No, it doesn't.
Or non-binary people.
And what about the spectrum? What about the spectrum?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So dating now, present day, are you in a relationship?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So dating, what is that? How do you have those conversations about gender fluidity, and for people who may or may not understand it, but you find interest in them and they find interest in you? How do you express that?
I feel like these days I'm definitely shifting, right, to the spectrum of either, feminine presenting people or people that were at birth, right? Women and are transitioning into, their masculinity. Finding myself less attracted to cis het men at this time, just because I find just politically sometimes it's hard to explain some stuff to them. And I've always found myself kind of bumping up against their form of masculinity sometimes, because I'm like, all while you see me as such, that's not necessarily how I express myself in space. And I do feel like sometimes, the way that society teaches men about like what a woman should be, and sometimes it feels like men are like the enforcers of what femininity is. And so it kind of feels a little yucky to me. So oftentimes, I'm already probably, pursuing someone that already has that vocabulary, has that language for themselves. So I don't think that's too much of a problem.
Yeah. And it makes sense, because a lot of times the one of the biggest things is you have the sexuality of the person, right? But then you have all of the stuff underneath. You have the spiritual connection, you have the emotional connection, you have really their mental health, you have where they are in terms of development, their energy, how they present themselves and express themselves. So I think it's interesting you bring up the understanding the energy of a cishet man and your energy not necessarily being compatible, because it's really not about whether you're attracted to this man or not, or you like each other. It's just really the energies and the way that you show up doesn't work together. It makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So you describe yourself as a rainbow fish. What is that?
Well, I've always loved that book. But just when I think about just that book, Rainbow Fish, there's certain people that think various things about it, but in essence, this is this fish that has all these colors, right? And at first, they're kind of stingy with that, not really understanding the significance of sharing those colors, right? But through sharing, I feel like Rainbow Fish is actually able to illuminate not only himself, but the beauty in other people as well. So I kind of like to think of myself as like a luminary kind of energy, where it's just like I kind of like float on in, right? And just to kind of just remind people of the inherent good of just themselves or the situation or whatever.
Nice. Okay. So let's talk about your business. You have a company. Let's tell the people all about it.
Yeah, so I have a small business called Pxnk Mercury. It's a healing arts business, focusing on using sensuality and movement healing to help people ground into themselves and explore their bodies in a safe space. Mostly I do workshops virtually as well as just locally in Philadelphia. And I do center my work on femme people, whether it's just like, you are in a spectrum of femininity or you are looking to express your femininity. So if anything, I like to feel like it is gender inclusive, right? Because we're still on that spectrum, but it's really feeling the movement. It's feeling the body in motion. It is giving people the agency to express themselves in time and space. And I feel like it's especially important for them people who have been told to either just be mindful of how much space they take up, right? And how they share and express their sensuality. And through them reclaiming that in a very safe space, I find it to be very healing. So that's what my business is in a nutshell.
Awesome. And you say you do tarot card reading?
Yes, I do tarot reading. I've been doing tarot full time for about 1.5 years now. I'm with a few companies. So yeah.
What's some of the wildest discoveries you've made
through tarot?
Yeah.
That therapy is important.
that sums it up.
That therapy is important. That these cards are wonderful. They're medicine. They're to help guide you. However, I do realize people have, become very dependent on that. And there's also like another parasitic side, right, to this healing art, spiritual businesses, right, in which some people are taken advantage of because of their weaknesses. So one thing I do like to let my clients know is that readers have therapists too, boo. You know what I'm saying? And so while I give you this information, I hope you do follow up with a mental health practitioner.
Yeah, because when people come, are they like, they're like looking for like, tell me, like, they're looking for, do you find that people are looking for something very specific, or are they kind of open to the reading as a whole?
It really depends, right? Because the people that know I read, they come at me totally different than people that I read for through other businesses, right? And oftentimes I feel like it's through the other businesses that like a lot of weird stuff happens, right? They don't really know who I am. They don't know how I roll. They might not necessarily respect the interaction. They think of it as very transactionary, like give me all the answers right now. And if I were to do a reading with somebody, right, that has came to me organically, we can really like touch down with each other, that I feel like in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, no, I understand. Wow, that's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. All right, so tell the people where they can find you. Well, actually, before we do that, we've come to the end. And I always ask, what is one piece of advice you have for a young queer person who may be going through a similar journey as you, or be grappling with their own process?
You are a gift through the universe. However you show up, how you give to other people, what sets your soul on fire, that's your truth, and it is to be cultivated. Worry less about being a human, doing, trying to impress other people, trying to hide and snuff out your light for the sake of other people. Focus on your inner being and just being true to yourself, because at the end of the day, this life here is temporary. So focus on your inner being.
Yeah, that's good, man. All right, well, tell the people where they can find you on all your socials, your business. Let them know.
Right now you can find me on Instagram, Pxnk Mercury with an X. That is my healing arts business, and that's where I post majority of like my work and my upcoming events and stuff. I do have an online sensual lab in which it's more of a guided practice.
Awesome. So that's Pxnk.
Pxnk Mercury with an X, not an I.
Got you. Okay, good. All right. Well, this has been another episode of the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley. I'll catch y'all on the next one.